there, I'm Cher, and this is Diary of a Pen Nerd. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the purposes of journaling and kind of my evolution through journaling and where I'm at now. So growing up, I really only heard about journaling like for posterity's sake. Like you were keeping a historical record of your life so that someone in the future, whether that be your children or your great-grandchildren or your familial posterity or future historians, would be able to read it and know what your life was like. And my family was really big on family history and keeping a record and looking back at the records that, our ancestors had kept and using those to piece together their lives. And that, keeping a journal in this way was really a practice mostly for the future. So when I started journaling, and I started journaling first in elementary school, I imagined that I was writing a journal for posterity's sake, for someone at a future date to read and learn about my life. And this put a lot of pressure on me from this imaginary future audience. I wanted my journals to have some kind of significance or importance, that I needed to be, relaying great thoughts or doing exciting things. Otherwise, my journal would be very boring and not very worthwhile in the future. And so I would stress about my journal entries not being significant. And when I was in 8th grade, in English, we did a unit on the Holocaust. And as a class, we got the opportunity to pick one of several written works pertaining to the Holocaust, and one of those was The Diary of Anne Frank, which is what I chose. And as we were reading it, we were all in little groups of people who had picked the same literary work, and as we were reading through The Diary of Anne Frank, I remember one of my classmates remarking that he found her diary to be very trivial. He was hoping for more detail about living through World War II and the Holocaust. But when Anne Frank was writing her diary, she wasn't writing it with my classmate and his curiosities about that time period in mind. She was writing it because she was a preteen to teenage girl, and she had a lot of thoughts and feelings that she wanted to express, and not all of them had to do with the war. And so there's that aspect of it as well. And then I also felt like there were things I didn't want future people to know about me, so I couldn't put those in my journals. And then I was censoring myself, and I wasn't being fully honest. Or I lie by omission, even just leaving things out. And so eventually I figured out that journaling for posterity's sake was really not helpful to me. And when I let go of the idea of any kind of future audience, I found that I was able to be a lot more honest and raw when I imagine that I'm writing for my eyes only, and even that I don't have to go back and reread this ever, but just it's really, my journaling practice now is really for me in the moment. It's a way for me to process and decompress from the things of my day. It's a way for me to reorganize my brain and declutter my thoughts. And so because of this, I don't have to be interesting or significant. I can write the same things every day, or I can write about things that might seem really trivial. If the most important part of my day is that I went to work and I write about that, then that's a good journal entry. I don't have to be writing about, current affairs or my opinions on deeply thoughtful topics. Those are nice and sometimes do make it in. My focus is more on my day-to-day and my the experiences that I'm having. And I also found that through letting myself be more honest in my journal, that I was able to process a lot of things that I was kind of holding back. Like, I was able to start naming my feelings and work through negative thought patterns. Whereas before, when I would have the thought of, as an example, like, oh, my friends are mad at me, which is a common thought that I have, I would just sit with the thought that my friends are mad at me. But when I'm able to write it in my journal, I'm able to write, I feel like my friends are mad at me, but I know that this is just, my own anxiety, and that there's no reason why they would be mad at me. They've done nothing to suggest that they're mad at me. If they do have a problem, they will tell me and we'll work through it. And so I'm able to kind of validate my feelings as well as work through them and deconstruct them and understand why they might not be, accurate. Whereas before, I would just kind of sit with them and spiral in them. And so that's one way that my journals have been really, really helpful to me. And through this, I'm able to be more vulnerable and more reflective, and there's less pressure or stress about having any kind of significance or importance. And so in this kind of journal keeping, I'm not really imagining even that at later dates, I personally would go back and reread my journals very much. Though I imagine that I likely will, but this is not where I'm doing a lot of memory keeping, so to speak. But there are still things that I would really like to remember and to do some kind of memory keeping. For example, about this time last year, my sister and I spent quite a while in Germany. We were there for 3 weeks, and the entire time we were there, I didn't journal even once. And now looking back, I do wish that I had written more and kept track of, the things that we did each day and the places that we went and what we learned and what we saw and everything. But I knew that my journal, which at the time was actually this one, was not the place that I wanted to keep track of those memories. And so I am now imagining memory keeping as a separate journaling practice that I would do specifically with the intention of documenting important things to me. And it would be still focused on, memory keeping for myself, but I guess, potentially there would be things that I would want to share with, my future family, like my trip to Germany would be a really good example of that. And I also imagine that this kind of memory keeping would be done after the fact, that perhaps my memory keeping efforts while I was in Germany would not have been as effective or turned out the way that I would like them to if I had done it while I was there. That it would be better to do it afterwards when I can pick out the things that are important or significant to me then. But that has kind of been my evolution through journaling as a practice. This is the journal that I'm in right now, and it's got all of these pretty design on the front, and then there's a little charm on the elastic, which is really nice, and I like this one. I think it's going to get quite bulky. The paper is on the thinner side. It's not super thin, but it's on the thinner side, and I've been gluing in a lot of things, so I'll just kind of give you like a little waterfall through there. So I imagine that this is going to get quite big. This was the first journal this is what I used in June, for the month of June, and as you can see, I did quite a bit of gluing and taping in this one as well. So this one got a little bit bulkier, but then in most of my previous journals, I have not really glued in very much, aside from just little pieces every once in a while. But these are my most recent journals, and kind of my thoughts on how your purpose and your intention behind journaling can really shape your experience with it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about, your own journaling practices and intentions, and kind of what you have in mind when you're writing. And that is all I have for you today. So thank you for tuning in to another transmission. If you liked it, you can stick around, hit the subscribe button, and I will have the next chapter of my story out soon. Bye for now. Love, share.